going to start with 3 questions. I like this girl. How do I get her to like me back? What is an uncircumcised penis? What is the difference between a vibrator and a dildo? Don't worry, this is not a pop quiz. Parents, this is not that type of talk. These were some of the questions that my classmates and I had asked when we were in grade 7. We asked them to our teacher, Miss Marziali. Miss Marziali had just taught the school curriculum for sex ed, which is basically STIs, this is what a condom looks like. And to wrap up the unit, she handed out these white pieces of paper. And she told us we can ask any other questions we had. She told us we can ask anything we wanted. Well, I remember when she started reading out those questions, the entire room just took a collective breath. And we waited for her reactions. When she knew the answer, she answered it, like the one about liking a girl. And when she didn't, or more like I suspect, didn't know how to answer the question, she simply looked up and calmly said, "I'm going to find out and come back to you tomorrow." Just like that. Like we'd asked her a question about math, and she needed to go look it up in the answers book before coming back to us. Except we had just asked her a question with the word penis in it. The next day, Miss Marziali came back, and I remember she, in a very matter-of-fact manner, told us the difference between a vibrator and a dildo is that one vibrates and one does not. And for the uncircumcised penis question, Miss Marziali took out a fresh clear sheet for the overhead projector. Millennials, you can Google what that is. And on the overhead, she drew a sleeping bag. She told us, a circumcised penis is like a sleeping bag without the hood. And an uncircumcised penis is like a sleeping bag with the hood. And just like that, sex ed was over and it was recess time. Now, was it useful for a bunch of 13-year-olds to know the difference between a vibrator and a dildo? Not really. While the facts that Ms. Marziali shared were interesting, what made a profound difference was the way she shared those facts. She was normal about them. And what I mean by normal is she gave us permission. Permission to be curious, permission to inquire, permission to treat sex like it's normal. Now, I'm not saying that when you leave here today, you must all talk about sex with every single 13-year-old that crosses your path. What I do hope, though, is that you focus on just how powerful permission can be to conversations about sex. And when I say sex, I don't just mean the act of sexual intercourse. This is something bigger than that. This is about our sexual wellness, which plays a big role in how we feel in our own skin, in our sense of who we are. It plays a role in how intimate we are in our relationships, in our marriages. It even impacts our overall health, both physically and mentally. So whether you're single or attached, or if you're 25 or 75 years old, this conversation is applicable for you because you are human, interacting with other human beings. Now, suspense. What is she going to say next? As a society, we know this, right? Society makes a big deal about sex. We react, kind of like how I just did. I bet some of you are reacting right now. Like, you might be feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Or maybe you're a little bit nervous about how the person sitting next to you might be judging your reactions. Like, was it appropriate to laugh earlier? Can they hear the increase in your heart rate? And guess what? That person sitting next to you is probably wondering the same thing about you. So for the rest of this talk, I invite you to take a deep breath and just focus on yourself. Soak up the sex talk. Which would be a pretty rare thing to do, wouldn't it? Because for the most part, we are all so scared about what other people think when it comes to sexuality. We hardly ever talk openly and honestly about it. Now, I've been talking about sex with others my whole life. Some people love cars, some people love fashion. My jam is sexual wellness. I love it so much, I geeked out and completed a master's degree in sexual health counseling. I'm also really passionate about creating spaces for people to get comfortable talking about sex, which unfortunately is still not very common. I mean, if you just look in the media these days, you'll see headlines like, "Here's how often to have sex for optimal health and happiness." By the way, that article says we need to have sex every day. 5 sex positions every guy must try. 5 scientific reasons why you should masturbate every day. So when I entered sexual wellness, I thought, okay, I'm going to help people by providing information that's more realistic. And I thought sexual intelligence was that key. People just needed the right information, right? And I thought this until I met a woman who I will call Nadia. Nadia came to one of my workshops, and she was really quiet the entire time. And later that evening, she told me in private that actually she was really unhappy because she had early onset menopause, and it just felt like overnight her libido disappeared. But when I saw Nadia a few days later, she was lit up, completely different person, so excited. And she said to me, she's like, "Erin, guess what?" I was like, "What?" She's like, "I realized I am normal." So turns out, Nadia had never talked about sex with anyone. And through the conversations in the workshop, she realized that actually a lot of other women need external stimulation to enjoy sex too. And then she said to me, and this is the best part, my favorite part, she said, "I'm just going to stop worrying about whether or not I'm normal. I'm just going to focus on myself." I was so happy, I gave her a big hug. And Nadia gave me an encounter that I will never forget. We've been socialized to think that to be sexually intelligent, we need the facts, the technical know-hows, the techniques, the how-tos, and everything like that about sex. But what Nadia's story showed me is that actually there's more to sexual intelligence than that. To be sexually intelligent, we also need permission. When we give ourselves permission and those around us permission, we free up space for pleasure. With Nadia, she gave herself permission to just be herself and stop worrying that something was not normal about her. She realized that menopause didn't have to stop her from being a happy sexual woman. When we give permission, it's like a little signal that says, it's okay, it's normal. Now, this probably feels really conceptual, right? Like, how would this apply to your lives when it comes to sex? It's pretty hard to imagine what it'll feel like if it's not awkward or embarrassing. It's kind of hard to imagine. So to help you bridge that gap, I'm going to use another pleasure in life as an example. Food. Why food? Imagine your favorite dessert. Now imagine you've been craving that dessert for an entire day or an entire week. Now imagine finally taking that first bite. Those are pleasurable sensations. And interesting fact, research conducted on our brain patterns show that when it comes to our pleasure response to food and to sex, similar parts of our brains are stimulated. So biologically, the way we want, consume, and learn from our food experiences is actually very similar to the way we desire, initiate, and complete our sexual experiences. Yet with food, we are all so comfortable and confident with our own preferences. Like, you know if you like dark chocolate or not. You know if you love durian or if you hate durian. And for those who don't know what durian is, think escargot or chopped liver. The point is, no one is on the fence about whether or not you like or dislike these types of foods, right? And we're okay expressing that. Actually, let's try this. Raise your hand if you love durians. Go on, be proud. Okay. Now raise your hand if you hate durians. You can't stand them. Okay. So notice how people were pretty comfortable raising their hands. Yes? It's not like the durian lovers, you don't really care that there are durian haters in the room. And the durian haters aren't all shaming the durian lovers, like, oh my God, you love durians? Your parents really screwed you up. Notice how when it comes to permission for ourselves and for others with food, it's become so natural we barely even notice it. Like, however you're feeling about durians is normal, and you all know that. This is not the case with sex. Can you imagine if instead of durians, I asked you about anal sex? Don't worry, I won't. But can you imagine? Raise your hand if you love anal sex. Raise your hand if you hate anal sex. Thank you. Just the fact that suggesting that I might ask you about anal sex changed the energy in the room a little bit. For some people, that's not even something they feel comfortable talking to their romantic partners about. Yet we would never put this type of pressure and taboo on being vegetarian. Okay, now just for fun, let's flip this. Let's take the most common food conversations that couples have. What to have for dinner. Normally, it would probably look like this. Hey, I'm hungry. You hungry? I could eat. What do you want to eat? Italian? No, I don't feel like Italian. Korean? Yeah, I love Korean. Let's go for that. Something like that. Now, imagine taking that conversation and having it the way you would currently talk about sex. It'd probably look like this. Hungry? Italian? I'm not feeling Italian. I have a headache. What? But you love Italian. You loved it last night. Do you not like my Italian cooking? Were you faking it? Is something wrong? Are you not attracted to me anymore? You get the point. It's funny, but borderline not funny, how ill-practiced we are when it comes to talking about sex. So how do we get so comfortable with food? We've had practice. We gave ourselves permission to be curious, to inquire, and to treat it as a normal part of life. Wouldn't it be a relief to be able to do the same with sex? And that's what I want you to walk away with today. The ability to be real about sex, to be able to be as sure about your sexuality as you are about dark chocolate. So to walk away with that, here are the 3 things that I invite you to remember from today. 1, remember that sexual intelligence begins from within, not from a search engine. Give yourself permission to be curious. And whatever it is that you like or dislike, give yourself permission to embrace that as your current normal. And just like food, tastes change, bodies change. So give yourself permission to trust your taste buds or sex buds. 2, make space in your conversations with others for them to practice permission too. Ms. Marziali probably didn't think that by answering those 2 questions the way she did, she would have made that kind of a difference for me. But she did. So be aware of how you choose to engage others when it comes to conversations about sex. Kind of like how we practice today. No durian shaming. And the more you do it, the more natural it will feel. And if today's conversation sparks something for you, then share what you learned about yourself. We need more Miss Marzialis in this world. And finally, know that it's gonna take time. It might seem impossible right now, but it is possible. I know this not only from my own work, but also personally with my family. When I first told my parents about my passion and my desire to work in this area, they did not love the idea. Imagine traditional Taiwanese parents in their 60s. My father actually told me that he might have to lie to his friends about what it is that I do. And for close to a year, every single phone call was spent trying to talk me out of it. But through conversation and over time, they've come around to the point where my mother now shares things with me that I never would have thought I would hear from my own mother. And I get to contribute my expertise to her. And my father, who's an entrepreneur, is now one of my biggest mentors, and he gives me invaluable business advice. So whether it's food or another area in your life, you know how to have these conversations. You know how to trust your body. It's just that with sex, we're all playing catch up. But it's worth it. At the end of life, what matters isn't money or that big mansion. What matters at the end of life is our experience of life in our bodies, in our relationships. So don't go through life terrified of asking others about durians. Living a sexually intelligent life is worth it. And just remember the secret ingredient of permission. Thank you.